Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Odierno, General Grass, General Talley, thank you all three for your service. Thank you for being here. General Odierno, I'd like to start by just making a comment about the brave men and women at Fort Hood. I was down there last week visiting with the heroes, and as tragic as that shooting was, I have to tell you it was at the same time inspirational. One young soldier I visited with in particular had been shot twice, was recuperating, was in the hospital with his fiancée and his mother and his sister, and as he was sitting there, and the commanding general came in and he saw the ranger patch on his uniform, this young soldier leaned forward and said, "I want to be a ranger. Can I go to ranger school?" And this is 48 hours after he's shot, he's recuperating, and the only thought he had was that he wanted to be a ranger and fight for our country. And it just, it's a powerful testament to the extraordinary men and women who serve in our Army and serve in the military. And I know all of us are praying for those soldiers, are remembering those soldiers, and are standing with them. One question that has obviously been discussed in the past week has been the question of concealed carry on military bases. And I recognize that's a question on which there's a difference of opinion, a difference of opinion in the military, a difference of opinion in the civilian world. There are some soldiers who feel quite strongly that concealed carry would be a sensible change in policies. There are others who may disagree. And I guess my question would be, it has been a long time since this committee has held a hearing examining that question, examining the policy benefits and detriments of allowing concealed carry on military bases. In your view, would that be a productive topic for a hearing for this committee?
There's clearly a difference of opinion on this. I would just say, Senator, that our assessment is that we right now probably would not initially support something like that. But all of this is always worth a discussion if we think it's important.
Well, thank you for that, and I do agree it's a question worth further examination, because I think we are all agreed that we want to implement policies that will maximize the safety of the men and women who are serving on our base. And obviously Fort Hood has now twice in a very short time period suffered through a traumatic experience, and I'll tell you, the community has come together even more strongly in the aftermath of that. I'd like to ask another question focused on the proposals of the Army to reduce its active duty end strength after more than a decade of war. And I understand that the Army can handle much of the reduction through normal attrition, but that there will be some soldiers with several tours in Iraq or Afghanistan. In other words, some of our most valued combat veterans who, under the current plan, will not be allowed to re-enlist or otherwise stay on active duty. And the question I would ask you is, if we go down that path, wouldn't it make a sense for the nation if we could find places for those soldiers in the National Guard, so that we don't lose this experience?
Senator, it does. And we're working programs now as we go through this to ensure that we have some limitations that we're working our way through now in terms of recruiting and how we do that and get them exposed to the National Guard, because we clearly would love to keep this experience in the National Guard or the U.S. Army Reserve, either one, because, as you said, they have great experience, they have great contributions, and the fact that we have to draw down 150,000, there's going to be some incredibly capable people that will leave the Army that we would certainly like to continue to serve.
Mm-hmm. General Grass, I would welcome your views as well, that on the ability of the Guard to absorb and provide a home for some of these combat veterans and ensure that we have their contribution to readiness going forward?
Senator, we actually, as General Odierno mentioned, we have programs already where we're having an opportunity to talk with the soldiers who are going to be getting out and talking about what part of the country they're going in. We also have the ability to retrain them if the skill that they've been serving on active duty doesn't exist in their hometown. We can get them additional schools, and we can actually do that before they leave active duty now, which is a huge success from the past. Senator, one of the things that I'm really pushing hard on is looking at the mix between our prior service and non-prior service. When the war started, the Army National Guard was sitting at about 50% prior service and 50% non-prior, which meant that everyone we recruited in the non-prior had to go to basic training. They had to go to AIT. They had no skill, no experience when they came out. All of those prior service recruits already qualified, had great experiences. As the war unfolded, a lot of people that came off of active duty and with 2 or 3 deployments felt that they had served their nation and they wanted to get on with their civilian life. So our numbers went down to about 20% prior service, 80% non-prior. So that has cost us additional in recruiting and training. And we would really like to get back to about a 50-50 split and be able to capture all those great young men and women coming off active duty into the Guard.
Senator, if I may, as we transition from AC to RC, as we lose that quality soldiers from our active component, it's critical that we bring them into our reserve component. But we really shouldn't look at them as no longer being a soldier. We want them to be a soldier for life, which means in the regular Army, the Army Reserve, one of our 54 Army National Guards. And in the Army Reserve, we created the Employers Partnership Program that was replicated across all services and components, and now it's called Heroes to Hire at the OSD level. So we can help those soldiers. Instead of pushing them out, we can pull them out, give them into a civilian career in the private sector that we can train them for in the Army Reserve, and then allow them to be one of our enablers. And to your opening comments, all I have to say is Rangers lead the way.
Well, thank you, and thank you for that comment and your service. Let me ask one final question, which is, at a time when budget resources are certainly scarce, it seems to me there's a difficult policy question of the right balance between active duty and reserve and guard, and each has a different impact on cost structure and also our readiness. And the question I would ask to all 3 of you is would you support the idea of an outside independent commission to study and analyze the proper mix for active and reserve component forces for the Army?
Thank you, Senator. I think I'm on the record of not supporting that commission, and let me give you reasons why. I think I owe you that, obviously. First, a lot of us compare it to the Army and Air Force Commission, Air Force Commission, but in the Air Force proposal initially, they didn't cut anything out of the active component. All their cuts were out of the reserve component, where in our case, 70% of the reductions are coming out of the active component to begin with. So we believe it's been a real fair assessment. And besides that, this has not been a surprise. For the last year, 12 to 18 months, we've done detailed analysis, internal to the Army, and we've done external to the Army. RAND Corporation has studied this. In addition to this, OSD CAPE has validated our total force levels as well as the Aviation Restructure Initiative. So we've had outside validate this. So in my mind, I'm not sure what additional expertise would be brought to this by a commission. And in addition to that, it would cost us $1 billion additional a year if we delay this 2 years. And I worry about that because we already have significant unfunded requirements. Thank you, sir.
General Grass, General Talley.
Senator, I think your question to me is there value in an external look at the reserve component versus the active component balance? And I would tell you, throughout my career, every time we've had challenges, fiscal challenges, this comes up. And you know, my personal opinion is that it never hurts to have another look at that balance, because we all learn from it over time. I do think going forward, no matter what comes out of the budget, and General Odierno and I have talked about this, we've got to build more multi-component opportunities, similar to what we had on pre-9/11, where we had what was called the Title 11 embedded officers and NCOs from active duty into our Guard units. I think that's the kind of thing we got to look to the future. And how do we get there with the challenges that we've all been handed with the great difficulties in the fiscal horizon?
Senator, it's not clear to me why we need an Army Commission. I think the Army working together and leading through some of the challenges we're having, which are really, to be frank, an impact of the serious budget issues that have been placed upon this service, I think we can resolve them. If the Congress makes a decision to go forward with the Commission, the only thing I would ask is it's critical to make sure that all three components are well represented and integrated. And then as I mentioned earlier in the hearing, my concern is when I look at the Air Force Commission that just concluded, there are already some comparisons being drawn out of one of the recommendations to eliminate the U.S. Air Force Reserve Command and how that might apply to the U.S. Army Reserve Command, which is a great Title X response force for the nation. So I'm a little leery and questionable whether or not this is needed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.